Well, my mind's literally blown. I can't believe it. Yesterday, Apple finally announced the device that we've all been waiting for, the Vision Pro. Now, I know, $3,499. That's a lot of bucks, and it's not something that maybe 99% of the population is going to be able to rationalize purchasing out of the gates. But what does this mean? What does this mean to us as creatives, right? It means that now that Apple has gotten serious and dipped their toes officially into this space of what they're calling spatial computing, moving into what Zuckerberg would call the metaverse, that just means it's for real. So I don't know about you, but I'm geeking out about what the potential is for this thing. Now, obviously it's still a headset you put on your head. It's got some bulkiness to it. It's made out of amazing looking materials, aluminum alloys, finely crafted, stitched material and what have you, but it still has a cord going down to the battery pack, which I'm not super excited about. But all those things aside, what does it mean for us as creatives? That's what I keep asking myself. Now, obviously, there's a gold rush for developers and creators, visual UI, UX people, animators, etc., to produce applications to debut on the Vision App Store, whatever they're going to call it, in early 2024. But outside of that obvious kind of revenue stream or opportunity, there is something that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. I mean, and you know, obviously there are smarter people out there than me, but when I look back to the iPhone when it was first introduced, there was a scramble. You know, they had the Safari browser, a mobile version of it. You had to deal with this portrait version of a website that nobody had. Everyone's websites were locked down. Maybe there was a little bit of flex horizontally for desktop computers and laptops, but there were no tablets, there were no phones, especially in that portrait kind of mode. You could have some kind of website viewing experience on a BlackBerry or maybe a Palm Pilot, but for the most part, it was just a small version of the desktop that people were viewing. And so what does Vision Pro mean for those of us who produce content for the web, for brands? You know, what does it mean? I think that it means the creation of new businesses, and it's something to get excited about. It's transformational. You know, Apple talks about spatial computing. As designers, motion artists, and so forth, for several years now, we've been taking what's flat 2D UI and making it 3D for our marketing visuals to really grab the viewer's attention, and you'll see these beautiful images. Microsoft's done some amazing stuff over the past few years with their Office interface in the form of motion graphics or still images, where you've got the background of the UI and then 3D buttons and elements floating off of that, and you can see that they have some depth and dimension to it. But from what I understand on the Vision Pro, that's what websites can potentially look like, and that's what the UI of Apple's spatial GUI, whatever you want to call it, is looking like. It's got dimension. You can see highlights on the edges of the app icons. Even the app icons themselves seem to have some dimension as the UI builds. You'll see things floating off of each other and then resolving in a beautiful way. So no one's website is prepared for that kind of experience. So what does that mean? That means that there's going to be a huge hole created essentially for people, creators that can produce UI and web experiences that are tailored to the Apple Vision Pro headset. So it's just another way that you and I can get involved in what's going to be absolutely transformational. Now, I know there's a lot of naysayers out there thinking that, I don't want to have to put something over my eyes. It's not going to be socially acceptable to walk around with these things. It's bad enough I have to wear glasses. Now, if Apple could get it down to this kind of form factor, then maybe we'd have something. But just look back to the original iPhone, how thick those were and how thin and big the screens are today, how we use our phones compared to that original iPhone, where initially there wasn't an app for that. There wasn't an app for everything. Apple produced all of the apps out of the gates, and it was a year or two later when they finally opened it up for third-party developers and they created the App Store. And like I said on the outset, people who took advantage of that, overnight millionaires, or at least 100,000-aires. And I think that opportunity is here for this. And I don't want to miss it. So what can we do? Obviously I work full-time for a company, and I'm not part of the product team. I'm part of the marketing team, and I'm already thinking about how we can leverage this new platform to tell our story about why MX. And on the side, I want to produce something that can live and launch on this Vision App Store to take advantage of this opportunity. Because maybe my app won't be a breakout success, but what it does do, it gives me or whoever out there who takes the time to produce something experience. So when enterprise teams say, hey, we've got an initiative to build an internal enterprise app for this, we need somebody, either contractor or a firm, or we're even hiring a full-time in-house position. Guess what? If you've put something up there and you've taken the time to jump through the different hoops and test it and get something out there in the wild, you're already going to be jumping up there at the top of the qualified applicants list. So don't let that $3,500 price tag scare you. The initial iPhone, I'll have to look it up what that initially costed, but I know it was quite a bit more than any other phone out there on the market. Yet people found a way to purchase it and have it. And then within a year or two, kids were, having their parents hand-me-down iPhones. And the next thing you know, the world of flip phones is essentially non-existent. And I think that's the vision for this headset. It's not another Google Glass. That thing was way overhyped by Google. Their marketing materials showed a big, beautiful image of UI that would be centered right in your field of vision and you could see through it and it would be so useful. But guess what? My company that I was working for at the time, we bought one or two of those and it was not what we were sold. It was very underwhelming. There was this tiny little window up here in the corner of your eye and you thought that, okay, maybe magically that'll reflect off the glass and you'll see some full screen image. But no, you had to look up in the corner of your eye and struggle to read the UI. And I think what we're seeing from Apple, what Disney has shown off in the keynote and different things, don't even begin to scratch the surface of what's possible. And in a 2D delivery like this, you can't adequately show what this is really going to be like to experience this. So if anything, they're underselling it. And it's going to be a magical experience for people when they first put that headset on and realize that the latency is essentially non-existent. So I'm putting my my bet on Apple here. That this is going to be a success, and that within a year or two there will be more affordable versions, stripped down versions, maybe plastic instead of the aluminum housing or whatever, and it's going to be huge. And this is good for Facebook as well. I know several people are like, I'd hate to be Mark Zuckerberg right now because Apple just blew their stuff out of the water. Well, they're going about it a little differently. They're selling their new Meta Quest 3 for $500, which is $3,000 cheaper, which is a big deal. And they're selling it at a loss. Now there's already a decent sized marketplace there, and Meta has the lion's share of it. And they'll be the Android version, where Apple will be the Apple version. Of course, high end, something that your enterprise companies are going to adopt. And I, for one, am super excited. And my mind is just bursting at the seams with potential application ideas, whether it's games or different utilities, ways to enhance the creative process, to draw in the physical world or digitally, to create 3D objects in an AR, VR type of a scenario. If you've ever had the opportunity to use Gravity Sketch on the Meta Quest platform, you can see that there's a lot of potential there. And if you're familiar with 3D modeling on the desktop and you jump into those kinds of programs, or what Adobe has created with their Substance 3D VR software, this is just going to take all that stuff to a whole nother level. And there are things that initially feel a little bit cumbersome, but I've seen people that have really invested the time to learn those tools, and they're building things much more quickly than you could on the desktop. I mean, imagine building a real world 3D object that's going to be produced, and to be able to put it in your environment and compare it in real time to scale. Reach your hands out on these handlebars to a new bicycle that you're designing and get a feel for, is this the right width, rather than just having to measure it and compare it to a 3D dummy model on your screen. Just one of millions possibilities. And again, super excited. So join me in the excitement. Take it to unimaginable levels. Just take the time to expand your mind. Think about, what could this do for you? How could it augment your current process? And I keep coming back to creating, because that's where I see the most value in this. But it's not just creating, as a solo creator, but the collaboration potential for this, people joining from their headsets and working on the same project. Now I know VR has done some of that, but we're talking about more than 4K resolution per eye, and this is Apple. I mean, the hardware on this thing, you got your M2 processor, which is more capable than the current iMac, the M1 iMac that I'm working on. And then, hey, what the heck, let's take this new R1 processor, throw that in there too. I mean, skadoosh. You've got OLED screens on the inside and the outside. And I know people are a little weirded out about the see-through option, where you can see someone's eyes through the device, and that might be kind of silly or weird, and maybe it is, but there's so much other potential. I mean, imagine showing visuals on your screen to let others see what you're seeing, or to print out animated messages to signal to others what you're doing. I'm currently modeling, or in the zone, or flow, whatever it is, or don't bug me. It's pretty cool. So that's my 2 cents, maybe more like 50 cents worth of information on how I feel about this new platform, this new space, this new category that Apple, because they've really invested the time, 5,000 patents, over a decade of time producing this thing. I mean, they're not releasing it till they could do it right. And from what I'm seeing, they've done it. Now, again, there are things that we'd like to see done better. And maybe it'll be 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now before, we have AR glasses that look like something more familiar, something not as alien. But I'm excited. I hope you are as well. And let me know what you think about this little process. We got visuals behind me. I'm just talking at you about my opinions on some of these things, these current events in the world of creating. And until next time, my friends, keep on creating. Create or die.